You're listening to Side Hustle Pro, the podcast that teaches you to build and grow a side hustle from passion project to profitable business. And I'm your host, Nicaila Matthews. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Nicaila here with another episode of Side Hustle Pro. So before we get into today's show and meet our guest, I want to address something. So people keep asking me, Nicaila, how did you use Instagram to build your brand and so quickly? For those of you who don't know, I actually broke down my techniques in a class so that you too can use my simple, and I mean simple steps to make Instagram work for you. So in a series of 4 modules, I broke it down. I go over everything from how I determine my niche, my targeted strategy for finding my true fans, how to create compelling content that gets real engagement, not just 1 or 2 likes, and not from bots. And I even walk you through setting up your first Instagram ad. Not only that, but you get one-on-one access to me to ask all of your burning questions specific to your brand and your Instagram page in my private Facebook community for Master the Gram. So if you have questions and you're serious about using Instagram to build your brand in 2017, then head on over to sidehustlepro.co/Master the Gram and register today. Now, let's get into it. Today's guest is a woman I consider the queen of apps. Her name is Sheena Allen, and she is a tech entrepreneur. She started her first company in 2011 as a senior at the University of South Mississippi. At the time, she had no tech background and was a psychology and film major, and on a whim, decided to launch her mobile application company. Giving herself a year to see if she would see any success with her company, Sheena Allen Applications, she eventually found that success with app number 3, Dublin. In fact, 3 months after launching the app for Android, Dublin received over 500,000 downloads. That year, 2013, Sheena made the decision to leave Mississippi and move to a tech hub to find mentors and increase her knowledge in the tech space. Since then, she has gone on to experience frustration with raising money and move back to Mississippi. There, she grew concerned with the predatory lending practices that she saw in her community and decided to fight back through the launch of a second startup, CapWay. CapWay is a financial company that focuses on the unbanked and underbanked. The service offers financial literacy content and onboards unbanked users to get a bank account. She's been featured in various publications, including Forbes.com, BlackEnterprise.com, and EBONY Magazine. In late 2016, Sheena made her premiere in She Started It, a documentary film that follows 5 women around their startup journey. Please join me in welcoming Sheena. I am so excited to have her on the show today. Hey, Sheena, welcome to the guest chair.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So guys, a little background. I met Sheena at a conference called Tech 808 back in 2015. And at that moment, I just remember thinking, wow, this girl is a rock star. So after founding Side Hustle Pro, she was definitely on my list of people I had to get in the guest chair. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Sheena. Who is Sheena?
I'm from Mississippi, from Terry, Mississippi, very small town. Went to University of Southern Miss, like you said, double majored psychology and film. Definitely never thought about technology. And I fell into this industry pretty much by accident. I had like a random idea. But oh my God, I knew the minute that it happened, like I really found what I loved. And unfortunately, Mississippi is just not their place, for technology. So, eventually packed my clothes. I actually spent some time in Silicon Valley, eventually made my way back to Austin. First startup is actually still up and moving, still generating great numbers in traction. And now it's my second startup, which is fintech. So actually moving that company to New York, but we will have a satellite office in Mississippi because Mississippi actually is the number 1 state for unbanked and underbanked residents, unfortunately, but it allows me to have a satellite office here because it allows me to get people who understand the culture to help build a company while also being able to be in New York where a lot of resources are. So both companies are up and moving and just, continuously pushing it forward.
Interesting. So I know you said from Mississippi, didn't expect to be here, but can you think of any experience, in your upbringing that influenced your entrepreneurial drive?
I won't say there was like just one thing, but I was always a little different, as my mom said. Like I was always like weird and dope things. Like I don't know why. Like I originally want to be an artist. And many people don't know that, but I really want to be an artist. I love to draw and paint. And I remember my dad going to college. My dad told me, he's like, "So you're going to be a bartender?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You know, you don't make any money from being an artist. You're going to be a bartender." So I was like, "Oh, let me find something else to do." My parents were very, very open. Not some of my friends' parents. I'm sure some of us who are listening, they'll know people who parents like really forced them kind of down a pathway. And my parents were totally opposite. They were like, "Listen, figure it out, like whatever you want to do." So I just did like just random wild things growing up. And I think just that experience and having that openness from my parents helped.
Okay. So what made you decide to get into apps, and when did you know you had an idea worth betting on?
So it was my senior year of college. I had actually rented my apartment out that summer. And of course, when you went to school, my roommate and I went to Walmart. We just like kind of getting stuff together for the apartment. And this was 2011, so the App Store was still pretty young. There was maybe 200, 300,000 apps in the App Store compared to now where it's like 2 million. So it was very young, and I couldn't find an app that I wanted. I wanted an app that I could keep up with my money and my receipts, and there wasn't one available. So I was like, "You know what? Forget it. I'm going to create it." And mind you, I told my roommate that, and she thought I was crazy. But that was the first app I ever created, and I fell in love with the process of it. So even though that first app was not successful, before I graduated, I actually created my second app, which was Words on Pics, and I think within those 6 months, I did about 5,000 downloads. And to me, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I made it." But I knew I had to really, really do something more than just 5,000 downloads in 6 months. And my friend Makia showed me a picture that she had, and the picture she actually had done in Photoshop. And it was her playing basketball against herself. And oh my gosh, I thought that was like the coolest thing I had ever seen in my life. And I was like, "I'm gonna make an app like that." And she's like, "What?" I was like, "I'm gonna make an app." And I honestly, from the minute she showed me that picture and I knew I was gonna make an app, I knew that was going to be the app that was going to change everything because I had never seen anything like that.
Wow. So I love that you mentioned the process and the fact that it's not so much about being a success coming out the gate, but that how that process set you up for success. So break that down for us. What were some of the first steps you took to start out, especially as a non-technical creator?
Well, I, for one, had no clue what the heck I was doing. Let me be honest and say that. So I was like, "You know what? So I want this app. Well, first, I need to know what it's going to look like." So I actually took some printer paper and kind of sketched it out. And then once I sketched it out on the printer paper, I actually went to Microsoft Word and I used like the little text boxes. And I just put like the little triangle. I mean, the little rectangle, kind of like your phone would be. And I designed it out of Microsoft Word. And I remember just writing down everything that will be on that one screen and then how it would go to the next screen that I would like, kind of write out of Microsoft Word. And I didn't know there was a flow chart. Of course, it wasn't the proper way to do a flow chart, but I I don't know. I got a chance to see really every step of it. And even now when I talk to people and I help people and I mentor people, I tell them all the time, you have to really go through that process because for one, it makes you appreciate the outcome, but it's I don't know, it's just something about going through that process that makes it all worthwhile.
So after you drew that out, and yeah, that's an important note because some people think, "Oh, I'm just gonna find a developer. I'm gonna describe what I
Yes.
want." Like you might think that describing it will help them, but they need to actually see from screen to screen, frame to frame,
Yeah.
what the process of that app is.
And that happens with us because we're like, because in our mind, we know what it should look like.
Yeah.
And we feel like if we just give somebody else a picture, they're going to know. And like, they're clueless.
Exactly. So then how'd you find your developer and everything?
I just took a chance with Google and
Mhm.
I Googled and I was like, find app developer. And the first website that popped up was guru.com. And And I was very lucky because now in hindsight, I actually know that most people have really, really bad experiences with freelancers. But I guess I just got really lucky. It was meant for me because I found somebody who was actually wonderful. Um, I gave him all the information that I had. Of course, we signed an NDA first. And I gave him my information. He gave me a quote. I mean, I was in college. I was broke. And I got a loan from my dad. And he was $3,500. And he was like, just pay my money back. He's like, that's what you want to do? You want to take the money and spend it on something like that? Something crazy like that? Do it. And I did. And I paid the money back. And once again, the first ad wasn't a major success, but it was definitely the first baby step into where I'm headed now.
Okay. And we'll move on from the technical in a second, but I just want to make sure people who are listening and want to do an app know at least the kind of rough idea of the steps. So after the developer, did you just set up an app account on iOS and then on Android and submit it once the developer sent you the files?
Well, so for me, what I did was, for one, make sure if you're going to do a freelance developer, you always do it in milestones. Never pay all the money up front. Mm-hmm. And I knew that from the very beginning, because what could happen is, one, their work could be horrible. For two, you could never hear from them again. If they're in India, I mean, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
You're on a plan to go to India and find them, which you're not. So I'm definitely paying milestones. Give them all the information they need. And then once they actually finish developing it, make sure you test it yourself. Unfortunately, I see people all the time who kind of just put everything in the developer's hand, and then they put in the app store and they get these really bad reviews. And they're like, well, he said it was wonderful, but the actual person never took the time to test it out. They kind of tried to cut corners. So he sent the whole, it used to be IPA back then. Now you do it through Test Flight. And I tested it out, and we put it in the App Store, which you have to create an account. So with Apple, you pay every year. It's $99 per year. With Android, there's a one-time fee of $25. And I put in there. I did my screenshots, and I wrote my description out and my keywords, and it was in the App Store. And we went through the review process. No, Apple was very strict. So they did their review process. And once it was approved, it was like, oh, here we go.
Nice. So now you're a developer. The first two aren't, hits, but that third one, what was the difference with that third one?
I think it was just very different. I mean, me personally, I had not seen anything in the App Store like it. And once I saw that, and I would even ask people, I was like, would you use this? Or what do you think about this? And everybody I showed that picture to, they was like, man, it's like the coolest thing ever. But you would have had to use some type of software to get it done. You just couldn't pull out your phone and do it.
And explain to us, what exactly was it again? So it's like you were able to split a picture up?
Right.
Yeah.
So of course, now there's probably 10 different ones. But it allowed you to clone yourself. So you open up the app and your screen was split in two. So you would take a picture on one side and it would freeze. And so you kind of step over to the other side and you take another picture, and you took both of them and you merged them. So it would look like it was just two of you in one photo. Mm-hmm. And like I said before that, it took software on a desktop to do that. And it was so big, I think, because I brought something that people had to kind of sit down and do and really go through all this editing. And I made it very easy actually on a phone.
So how did you handle marketing? I remember you mentioned that some influencers caught onto the app. Were you doing App Store marketing or, tagging people on Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, not at all. People ask me all the time, like, well, how much money you spend on marketing? A total zero. I didn't have money for marketing, to be 100% honest. I was trying, at that moment, I was trying to keep my head above water. I just paid my daddy back his $3,500. I didn't have a job. I had graduated. I didn't have, I wasn't in grad school. I wasn't getting a refund check. So I didn't have money to market, but I definitely take pictures all the time. I would post them on social media. And the first person I saw use it was actually Soulja Boy. And what was crazy was in the comments, people, everybody was asking, what app is it? What app is it? And I remember texting all of my friends. I'm like, hey, on the Soulja Boy's Instagram page, and just respond Dublin. And like that was my version of like marketing.
Wow.
But I didn't have it to market. So social media, I use my friends always helped out, get the word out. And that was pretty much how I marketed.
Nice. So what, now you were doing apps. Did you ever side hustle, like juggle a 9 to 5 while you were building out what this entrepreneurship life would be like?
Never. Only job I've ever had outside of this has actually been, I used to work at McAllister's in high school, but that was it. But I did try like other side hustles as far as being an entrepreneur. But I never had like a 9 to 5.
Oh, interesting. So what's your approach to paid versus free app? Were you always doing paid, or were you doing free with ads?
Well, I did free with ads, and then I had like you can upgrade to get like, all the full features for the paid version. But I'll say my early years, I didn't do a good job of splitting those two. Mm-hmm. So most people never bought the paid version at first, until I kind of learned the process and learned the game. But I definitely started out with free because, in all honesty, I never set out in the very beginning to make money. I honestly set out in the beginning to build a large followers, like a lot of followers, a large user base. That was actually my number one goal. And then once I started getting the millions of downloads, that's when I said, okay, we're going to kind of redo this thing and start to monetize.
Mm-hmm. And then how and when did you start to reap profit and rewards from your business? How long were you in business before reaching this stage?
So I launched my first app in the summer. Actually it was like August of 2011. I didn't start to see any real money until Dublin with Android. So that would have been about summer 2013. It's about 2 years.
Okay. And so then you were able to like sustain yourself and just keep it moving. What did you do in between those times? Were you still in school?
No. So for a year, I made enough to pay my bills, but it wasn't enough to really put back into the company. And at the same time, I didn't have many bills because I was staying at home with my mom. I was fresh out of college. I'm very frugal. It's actually really sad. My friends talk about me all the time. It's really sad. I'm so frugal. So I didn't really have many bills. So I made enough from the apps to pay the few bills that I had. It just that I didn't have enough so I could like go out and buy an apartment and live a nice lifestyle.
Okay. But that's a common theme from really smart and really successful entrepreneurs, that you got to be frugal. Like you can't go out and be flossing and celebrating like, all right, now I can upgrade to the penthouse.
Yeah. Oh my God. And I have to explain that, especially like I'm speaking to like younger kids, like especially like high school and even college. I'm like, that is not how the world works. Like, we're not all running around in Bentleys. Like, right. I promise you, we're not. Like, we are hustling every single day. Like, it's not one of those, we put an app out, it was really successful, and now we got $10 million. Like, that's not how this works.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of hustling now, let's transition into your decision to create CapWay. Now, was this after... Now, I know you moved to Austin and you also spent some time in Silicon Valley. When you were there, were you already pitching CapWay? Was this when you ran into frustration with raising funds, or was this a different, just for your mobile application company?
It was totally different. So I was pitching and still really, really focused on Sheena Allen apps when I was in Silicon Valley and my entire time in Austin. And I was actually trying to raise money for Sheena Allen apps. And at this time, like I had over $1 million at the time, and traction was still really good. Like I had my whole pitch deck, like the upgrades for the existing apps, and here are the new apps. And I just couldn't. I couldn't raise money, and it was so frustrating. And my money, even though I was making money now from Sheena Allen apps, I was starting to run thin on money. So I made the decision to attempt to come back home and raise money. Because I knew Mississippi didn't necessarily have the infrastructure for a startup or a tech company, but I was like, no, I might as well just shoot my shot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back home and see if I can potentially raise money back home for this company that started in Mississippi and hire kids and let kids intern from the local colleges, because there's nothing like it in the state. So that was actually my original idea behind even coming back to Mississippi. And I came back here in October of 2015. And while being here and trying to raise, which was not working out, I got a chance to kind of go back to what I had left years before, which was people who were actually still cashing checks at Kroger and at the local convenience store, and the fact that it was a payday lender on almost every corner. And coming back to that, it kind of opened my eyes up, because being in Silicon Valley, being in Austin, and of course I'm traveling, to DC and New York and all the time, I had kind of gotten away from that world. And I said, I would really want to research this, because I knew that world growing up. My grandmother never had a bank account. My babysitter never had a bank account. I remember growing up, you could never sit in her chair because she kept her money in her recliner. And you bet not sit in that chair. Like, you knew it. You don't touch that chair. My great grandmother never had a bank account. So I grew up around that. I just never really knew how serious it was until I got older and I came back to Mississippi, and I understood business from a different perspective. And I just continuously did research, and I realized, it wasn't a Mississippi problem. There's 60 to 80 million Americans who do not use traditional banking. There's over 2.5 billion people in this world who do not use traditional banking. And so I really dove deep into it, and I end up finding a love for something, because with Sheena Allen apps, a lot of those apps are fun. They're like photo, video, social entertainment. And I do love it. I still love it. But with CapWay, I looked at the fact, I really have an opportunity to change the lives of millions and millions of people on a scale and from a perspective that most people in this world don't understand.
Mm. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I read, you were quoted as saying in another article that if you're not pursuing tech because you're passionate about it, and so that you can be innovative and truly make a change and be disruptive, choose another profession. Talk to us about that feeling that you have.
I think some people want to get into it now because it's almost like this is like the gold rush. Mm-hmm. Like everybody sees tech like, oh my gosh.
It's sexy.
Yeah, it's sexy. Like, I want to be a geek now, and I want to have the backpack, and I want to have the startup. But it's like that's not why we do this. You came home and you're doing this podcast because you are truly passionate about it. Like, you want to talk to women who have side hustles and who are trying to do something special. Like, I did Sheena Allen apps because I had this idea and I fell in love with it. I'll do CapWay because I want to change millions of lives. And, I'll just use some of the people I had. Jewel did Park Pick because she saw an issue and she was trying to solve something. She had a passion for it. And, Justin and Brian did Babe because, there wasn't necessarily a place for Black singles to go and find other, everybody had a reason, a passion behind it, I know. And so when I see people come into it because they think they're going to make $1 million in a month, I'm just like, this is not for you. Yes. You're not helping us, because there's not a lot of Blacks in tech already. So don't come in and make it worse than it already has to be. Truly find a passion for it, because tech allows you to truly change lives. And if you're going to use it for that purpose, I'm all for it. If you're going to use it just because you feel like it's a quick way to make money, I'm not feeling that.
Exactly. And we're going to get into some, the sacrifices and challenges of being Black in tech. But before that, I want to learn more about CapWay. What exactly is the platform, so that is it available now for people to use? Is it still in development?
It's still in development. Our website is up, CapWay.co, if you kind of want to go and have some videos up. But the company itself, we have one service and two products, and our main service is actually financial literacy. And so we have a feed and we have programs that people will be able to go to, and they'll be able to really choose what they want to focus on, whether it's learning more about bank accounts or investments, and really take these classes or do these programs and learn. But the service actually backs up our products, which is a prepaid debit card and an actual bank issued debit card. And when we first started this, we did not want to do a prepaid debit card at all, to be quite honest, because we kind of felt, in a way, prepaid debit cards can be predatory. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to get away from anything predatory, which is like the check cashing places and the payday lenders. And so for us, we did not want prepaid debit cards. But in doing our research, we realized that we had to meet that market where they understood. What they understood was going to Dollar General and going to Family Dollar and going to Walmart and picking up a prepaid debit card. That's what they understood. So we knew that we had to meet them there. And by getting them even to, pick up one of our prepaid debit cards, what makes us different is we don't want you to forever reload that prepaid debit card, which is what the rest of them do. What we do is we get you on our platform, but we educate you and we give you the option and we see if it's best for you to actually convert over to a bank issued card. And so that was really big for us, because right now when we talk to people prepaid debit cards, like they're forever just reloading that prepaid debit card, but you're not building credit because you can't build credit with prepaid debit cards. Sometimes the fees are just as bad. So, for us, it was like, yes, we'll offer it, but that's not what we're about. We're not about just trying to make you pay $9 to access your own money through this prepaid debit card. Like, no, we want to help you build credit. We want to help you understand your money better. So that's what CapWay is all about.
Thank you. Thank you for building that, because I'm so tired, especially these celebrities. Come on, Russell Simmons. Why are you preying on the Black community? Are you serious?
What's crazy? We just had a talk about that. Just had a talk. And I said, I would love to one day just sit down with them, because while, his reason that he said he started Rush Card was because he saw the long lines of people, at trying to get loans from payday lenders. But, my question to him was, did you see that line and then you realized that this is a $340 billion industry? Or did you see that line and truly was able to understand the people versus just understand the problem and the money you can make from the problem? Those are two totally different things.
Yep. And especially once we get onto the side where we are creating things, we have to be so vigilant about when we see these opportunities, not creating things with only a lens of like money. Like, there are a lot of market opportunities. That doesn't mean you take them if it's not morally. But anyway, I could go on and on. So let's transition back. I wanted to touch on the challenges of being a Black female in tech. Now, for other founders who are going through this or about to face this pitch process and the challenges, can you share any tips that you learned from your experience?
You got to go in like, oh my gosh, every T has to be crossed, every I has to be dotted. Like, it has to be perfect. And I know that sounds like just complete BS, but it has to be perfect, because what people have to understand is sometimes it is an unconscious bias. And some people say that's BS, but how I look at it from my experience, and I've been doing this now for 5 years, is we wonder why the white guy from Stanford who has this mediocre idea, he gets the seed fund for $500,000 with no problem, or the angel round of $500,000 with no problem off this mediocre idea. Yeah, you have these Black founders who have traction and they have wonderful ideas and they can't raise. But if I walk into the average person office that I want to walk into to pitch to, he's going to be an older white guy. And so when I walk in and I'm this Black female and I'm from Mississippi and I'm trying to pitch to them this idea, they're looking at me like, okay, versus if that white guy from Stanford who's 25 walks into his office, he looks at him and he says, he reminds me of myself. Mm-hmm. I don't remind him of himself. I'm not a male. I'm not white. I didn't go to Stanford. I'm Black and I'm a female. And another thing is sometimes our ideas are very, very disruptive and they're very innovative. And it's great for us and it's great for our culture. But a lot of times those investors don't understand that. They don't understand their world. So that makes it even harder. Because I walk into an investor's office and I'm talking to him about the fact that I'm trying to help people who still hide money in their homes. And, those investors, some of them, they come from generational wealth. So to them, they're like, nobody actually hides money in their homes in 2017. And in their world, nobody does hide money in their homes in 2017 unless it's in a safe and it's millions of dollars. But no, we're talking about the people who don't have a choice because where they're from, there is no bank. Banks are redlining their whole community. Or they don't know about a bank account, or they're intimidated, or the older generation where, due to slavery, they don't trust. I mean, there's so many reasons, but it's kind of hard when they don't understand their world. They're so disconnected from it. So it's so many different issues. I can go on for days on the problems you're going to run into, but I would not say that it's impossible. I think we have 15 Black females now who's raised over $1 million. Jessica, I can't think of her last name. She just raised Jessica Matthews just raised over 7 million. Jewel Burke, I know, has done wonderful. I think Morgan for Blavy raised over 1 million. Stephanie Lampkins raised over 1 million. So there's Black women in tech who's raising money. It's just that the fact that we can count how many
is a problem, right? I heard this quote the other day. Tell me what you think about it. It says, "Don't look for investors, look for customers."
I agree all day.
Why is that?
Numbers don't lie. And while the argument is, and people complain, and we're having a conversation right now about being Black in tech and not being able to raise money, one thing that no investor is going to turn down is green. They care about one color at the end of the day. And if you can find customers bring money. And once you have money and once you have customers, the investors will find you.
That is some great advice. And I think, especially coming from like the same crowd of people who think tech is just sexy and I want a backpack and X and I want to, get my t-shirt and go hang in the bay. I think that that's this same mindset that the only way to be an entrepreneur is to like do something to raise money. Like,
yes,
you can directly go out there and touch the customer yourself. And then I like that you say that the investors will find you. And, so that's another alternative perspective I want to put out there. So before we get into some of the future thinking as far as sustaining a profitable business, I think of you as like one of the hardest working women out there. Like I see you on Instagram. I see the moves. I see the articles. Like, how are you doing this? And what are the sacrifices that it takes to be Sheena Allen?
I don't have a life.
No.
I do have a life, but it's definitely a lot of sacrifices. But I think one thing that I've had to learn was, and it's actually, I think it's a quote from Oprah. I want to give Oprah credit, but I might be wrong. But she said that you can have it all, just not all at once. And, growing up, I wanted 7 kids.
Wow.
I'm crazy. I did, though. I wanted a huge family. I wanted 7 kids. So in my mind, by 25, I was going to be like married with kids. And when I fell into the love of this at 22, 23, I knew sacrifice was going to have to be made. But for me, I do this for me, but I also do it for others. And only person that can outwork you is you. Like you're your competition. Like you're the only person that can stop you. I don't worry about anybody else's grass. Like I water my own and I look at myself in the mirror. Like I'm my biggest critic. Like you can't be like, Sheena, that app sucks. Because if it sucks, I promise you, I already know it sucks. Like you don't have to tell me. Like I'm my biggest critic. But I wanted to do something that was just so different. And I always kind of reference it. I had a conversation with Wayne Sutton in 2014, December 2014. And I remember asking him, I said, Wayne, you've been doing this a long time. Wayne is really, really big in like tech inclusion. And I said, you've been doing this for a long time. And there are so many Black women who has come before the group of Black women now that are very well known. In tech, I said, none of them have ever been a household name. I said, you look at Kimberly Bryant, who now has a name due to Black Girls Code, but Kimberly Bryant was doing tech way before then. Even though now we know about, like Hidden Figures, and even though they wasn't tech, which, it was Black women doing amazing things, but no one had really become a household name, unless you've in music and pop culture. And he said, well, Sheena, there's 2 options that you have. He said, you can take the route of everybody else, which is usually intern for a major company and then go on to start your own startup, or you can become a superstar and you can do it totally different. And the way that I took that was not become a superstar saying like, I want paparazzi following me around, because I don't. I like being able to go to Starbucks and nobody's following me. But I took that as saying like, Sheena, you truly have to look at this different, do it different, think different. And from that moment, that's exactly what I did. So even now, I'm actually finishing up writing a book now. I just finished the ebook. Now I'm writing a book. I'm doing CapWay, which we started in the Southeast, and eventually we'll go, national, and then eventually we'll go global. I'm more than likely I'll step down as CEO of Sheena Allen, but want to appoint somebody else, and I'll still be creative director. I think we try some people say you can't do too much, focus on one thing. And I agree. Like I definitely, I'm big on myself about focus. But I don't believe in putting all your eggs in one basket at the same time. So I think hustling smart, you hustle smart, hustle hard, to me is really important. And not putting all your eggs in one basket. So if it means, you know, that I don't have a life for a year, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Because for me, I love it so much, and I know where I'm headed. And you know, some people give up after a year, but you know, sometimes it takes 5 to 10 years to have overnight success, and I'm okay with that.
I love that. And yeah, I'm definitely inspired by your grind. Like every day I tell I know I could be working harder. So, and speaking of sacrifice too, like I love the fact that you are committed to sharing your knowledge. Like you've written an ebook. Now you say you're doing a whole book, and you know, also created like a consulting platform, right? So talk to us about that. Like what, given how busy you are, inspires you to create these outlets, and what's the vision moving forward?
So I started, the company's called Housebox, and I started actually because people would always email me and say, I had this idea for an app. Can you help me? And the truth is, that was actually the exact same purpose behind the ebook. I really don't have that time to sit and talk to everyone who has an idea. I wish I could, but I just don't. The reality of it is I'm running 2 companies. I just don't. So I wrote the ebook about how to focus on starting an app with no app experience or no technical background. And I just sat down for like a week. I just wrote down everything that I knew. And I sold it for $5. And the reason I sold it for $5 is because everybody who asked to pick my brain, they're always like, oh, I know you love Starbucks. Let me take you to Starbucks and pick your brain. Well, I love caramel frappuccinos. It's going to cost you $5. So the same $5 you were going to, you know, spend on my caramel frappuccino, my ebook. And, you know, I do follow-up questions, of course, Q&As, and then the Housebox came about because, once again, people asked me to help them develop their app, and I didn't have that time either. So I put together a consulting company, and I brought on people that I knew in tech. I said, hey, we're going to help people who have an idea. They probably don't have a lot of money, but they either need something very simple or they need an MVP. And where that has actually gone now is this year we're looking to partner with schools. And so you think about people in rural communities or small cities who cannot afford to live in, you know, New York or Silicon Valley or LA or Austin. But they want to be in tech and they can develop. And you think about the kids that's coming out of college who want that experience. And to me, it was like, I'm giving those people in small cities and rural areas and those students in college the ability to make money and also get the experience, while also giving the other side of this person who wants an app developed, doesn't have a lot of money, probably just wants a basic MVP. In the end, everybody wins.
So now what moving forward will be like the management for that? Because I know you said you talked about switching out from the head of Sheena Allen Apps to creative director. How will you manage these platforms, the Housebox too?
Housebox is actually, I've already stepped down. I have my partner, Fred Burns, actually runs Housebox now. But of course, I still check in. People who come to me, I still actually will talk to them and then pass them on down to Fred. And that team is actually continually to build that company right now. But I can't do it all. I don't try to do it all. But if I can put the right people in place so that everybody wins in the end, I'm okay with that. I don't need to own 100% of everything. I don't need to make 100% of everything. That doesn't do anything for me. And a lot of times trying to do all that, I'm gonna end up with 100% of zero. So, that doesn't mean anything to me. If I can take 10%, 20%, 40%, 50%, and then pass it on to somebody else who can truly run that company, and I can help continue to build that company, and I trust them to build the team and to run the company, and everybody, once again, in the end win, I'm totally okay with that.
Got it. And speaking of percentages, let's talk about sustaining a profitable business. So How, first of all, do you continue to financially sustain yourself given the unpredictable nature of entrepreneurship? Like, are your apps or, the most successful apps continuing to generate that weekly, monthly revenue?
Yeah, so Sheena Allen apps actually still makes money now. So we definitely keep the business going with the money that we make. And then I make money from that company. And with CapWay right now, we have raised a pre-seed round. So we've got investments for that. We're going through our beta. Our app launches in about 3 weeks. And we'll do our beta for roughly 2 or 3 months, depending on numbers. And then we'll go into our seed round. And of course, from there, I'll draw salary based off of our seed round. So I've found ways to definitely sustain speaking engagements. I definitely make money from speaking engagements. The book that I have out now, I make money from the book. So I definitely have more than one hustle.
Okay. And congrats on raising that pre-seed round. What does your team look like these days? You're not a team of one. How many people are you working with now?
So with Sheena Allen apps, I just brought on 2 people. 2 of them will probably just still be team members. I'm actually still interviewing and going through the process of finding the next CEO for that company. With CapWay, there's currently 3 of us. We have a developer and then my co-founder, Tim, who's actually from the Delta of Mississippi. And once again, Housebox is actually run by Fred now, Fred Burns. He runs Housebox now. And then everything else, for like my personal brand, I just do it myself. People always ask, like, no, who's your PR people? Who's your manager? And I'm like, Sheena. I just do it myself.
That would be Miss Allen. And how are you finding these dedicated, hardworking team members?
I came across Tim, which is my co-founder for CapWay. I knew Tim I met him about 3 years ago. He actually used to do PR for a celebrity. I won't name the name, but I met him because he was doing consulting for then doing PR for this one particular person. And I remember this time we had made a little money with Sheena Allen apps, and I was actually thinking about for the very first time having a celebrity to actually endorse one of my apps. And I actually ended up speaking to him about trying to get her on board, and she actually turned the offer down. But he and I stayed in touch because I found out that he was from Mississippi and I was from Mississippi, so we just kind of stayed in touch. And side note, after the app blew up, they actually tried to come back, but I was like, I'm good now. But so he actually ended up leaving that job anyway and going back to the Delta, Clarksdale, Mississippi, and working at a bank. And his job at that bank was actually rural communities. He worked strictly with those unbanked, underbanked individuals. So when I kind of followed up with him and he saw what I was doing and I knew all the experience that he had for 3 years, at this point, between the jobs of working at the banks and in those rural areas, it was a perfect match. And then my developer, I actually met him in New Jersey. Anthony Fraser, of course, we met at Tech 808.
Oh, cool.
So I was visiting Anthony in Jersey at the Newark Venture Partners, their new building. And this developer was there, and Anthony was like, "Oh man, this guy, he's young. I think he's like, at the time, I think he's 23, I think he's 24 now." And he's like, "Oh, he's young. Like, he's one of probably the best developers I've ever seen. And I can sell water to a fish, let me tell you." So I was like, "Listen, at this company, we need you. This is how it's gonna work. Like, come work with me." And I say with me. I never say for me. I hate that. I don't want anyone to work for me.
That's smart.
Like, come work with me. This is what we're gonna do. And being from Jersey, which actually does have a high population of unbanked and underbanked, also he understood that market, which was even more special to me. So that's how that came about. Fred is also from Mississippi, but Fred actually lives in Dallas, and he's a developer. He's been developing for a while. And I brought him on board for Housebox. And with the Sheena Allen apps, pretty much because we're going to split the company eventually between LA and Mississippi. I had a lot of LA connections, and they saw exactly where we were going with the company, which is outside of what you see now. What you see now is mainly like these photo apps, but that's nowhere near like where we're taking the company. And they saw that, so they definitely came on board. So
That's awesome. And what can you do if you can't afford a team right now?
Do it by yourself. I mean, I worked by myself for 3 years.
Okay. I didn't know that. So you are just expanding now. So what's truly next for Sheena and Apps and CapWay now that you have this team mostly in place? What's the next level?
For CapWay, we'll launch our beta. Like I said, we're about 3 weeks out, and we will do a college tour and a community tour for the next 2 or 3 months. And this is us actually going into the schools and going to the communities and talking to them about literacy and actually getting them to use our app with us around, tell us what they like, what they don't like. If they have a prepaid debit card, if they don't have a bank account, how can we help? Like, what would make them use our service based off what we already plan on doing? How can we improve that? Really important for us during this beta phase. So that's next for CapWay with Sheena Allen apps. Inside, we actually changed the name. It will not be called Sheena Allen apps anymore in a few months. Just because for one, me stepping down as actual CEO, I never want people to feel like they're working for this Sheena Allen company. I want them to feel like it's their company too. So I felt it was best to actually change the name. And so the name is actually already picked out. Just haven't legally changed it. But that company will definitely move into outside of just photo apps. It would definitely move into more of an entertainment social space with the app utilities that we already have. And just for me, continue to speak, do workshops when I have time, and just try to keep the door open to, help the next one come through it.
Got it. And that's so smart about changing the name. And I love how you approach bringing on team members and really making them feel like they have a stake in this. This is not just like, because, everyone, when you feel like you're just working for this other person, that's when you start to really feel like, man, I just want my own thing. But this is us in it together.
Definitely.
Now, we are about to get into the lightning round. You know the deal. You answer the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I think so.
I know, I just hyped it all the way up now. It's not even that lightning, not even that fast, but we just call it that for now. So number one, what's a resource that has helped you in your business that you can share with the Side Hustle Pro audience?
Oh, gosh. Resource that has helped me. It's Google.
Google. A lot of people say that.
Google is like, listen, Google can be your best friend sometimes.
There's so much. And listen, y'all, get up on the extensions. The extensions are life. Google, like Gmail. Come on.
Google. Yeah. I'm about to get that one.
All right. So who inspires you and why?
Every young person with a dream.
Oh.
Why? Because there's magic in being young and there's magic in having a dream. I tell people all the time, like, I'm a kid at heart. And I say that and I admire and inspired by the youth because the youth, they don't overthink anything. Mm-hmm. It's like, do you like this? No, that's ugly. Like, it's not going to hurt your feelings. It's just that there's no filter. Like, they're honest.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to color outside the lines, and I'm not worried about, people thinking it's ugly because I colored outside the lines. Like, I want to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. So the youth.
Got it. Number 3, what is a daily practice you use to start your day on the right note and increase your productivity throughout the day?
Meditation.
Do you use a certain app or?
No, I usually, unless I'm out of town, I usually actually go to the local gym and I'll go to the sauna and I sit there for 30 minutes and I just I pray and I go in there and I just clear my head for like 30 minutes.
Ah, that sounds so divine. Number 4, what's a personal habit that has helped you significantly in your business?
Being nonchalant. It's a gift and a curse of that.
Yeah.
But
I so envy nonchalant people. Does that mean that you also don't take things personally? Because I envy people who don't do that. I'm working on that.
It's just, sometimes people say things. I'm just like, okay. Okay. And I have a big brother who like tortured me growing up. So a lot of times I'm just like, okay, like, sure. Like, don't get me wrong, when it comes to business, I get feedback. I care about what customers say. I care about always improving my product. When it comes like the nonsense and all like the extra noise, like I'm so nonchalant. Like I'm just like, I don't care.
So number 5, what's your parting advice for fellow women entrepreneurs who want to be their own boss but are worried about losing that steady paycheck?
Don't get me wrong, there's a fine line, very fine line between the day that you quit your 9 to 5 and you dedicate yourself full time to your job. And part of that fine line is called common sense. But there is also this part that you can forever sustain yourself. And when I say sustain yourself, you can forever pull a salary and know what you're getting for your 9 to 5, or you can one day actually try to grow. And you're never going to grow. You can get a raise, but you're never going to truly grow by continuing sustaining yourself and working for someone else.
That's so deep. I mean, I just, in a group today, saw someone ask this question, like, I just want to quit and pursue my own thing. And I've been there. Age 24, quit my job, was just like over it, no backup plan. But it's real out here. The bills need to get paid.
Yes. Dreams don't pay bills, and I tell kids that. Now I tell them, I don't want to crush your dreams, but dreams do not pay bills.
Oh yeah, and
you have strategy.
Yep. And you know what else too? Time management and discipline takes a while to get the hang of. So I find that the more free time I have, the less I get done. So until I master this, I don't think it's time for me to be out there just free floating in the world like that. It's a real thing. Like when you have your days to yourself, sometimes you don't know what happened. It's 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I get that, but time management is a really, really big part of being an entrepreneur. Yeah. So you are definitely right about that.
Oh, yeah. So that concludes our interview for today. I mean, clearly I could talk to you way longer, but I, want to be respectful of your time. So what's the best way for folks to connect with you after this episode?
My personal website is sheenaallen.co. My Instagram and my Twitter are both at whoissheena. That's SHEENA. Facebook is /Sheena D. Allen. And then I'm also Sheena Allen on LinkedIn.
Thank you for the whole rundown. All right, Sheena, thank you so much for joining us in the guest chair.
Thank you.
And there you have it. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Side Hustle Pro. If you want to hear more from me, head on over to sidehustlepro.co/Side Hustle Corner to get my weekly Side Hustle Diaries chronicles about my own journey from passion project to profitable business. And if you want to find me online, I'm at Side Hustle Pro on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't forget to join the Side Hustle Pro Facebook community. Go to sidehustlepro.co/mastermind. And as always, if you love the show, do me a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.